Hello, my dear friends, and welcome. My name is Vickie Hadge, and this is Even So It Is Well. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Mathew Embry from MS Hope. Mathew was diagnosed with MS in 1995, and he's created MS Hope for people who've been newly diagnosed and or are currently living with MS. The goal is to provide science-based strategies that enable MS patients to find a path to a healthy future through nutrition, fitness, vitamin D, prayer, meditation, and kindness. He's also an award-winning filmmaker and advocate for those living with MS. In his autobiographical documentary, Living Proof, he shares his amazing story on how he's living well with MS and continues to live well after 25 years. Welcome, Mathew.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that very kind introduction.
You're an inspiration to so many MS patients out there. We really are so pleased that you could join us today. So today's conversation was inspired by one of your recent posts on social media about making sense of our illness and how it's not an easy process and how over time we can find some answers. And I thought this would be a really great conversation for those newly diagnosed or maybe those struggling with their diagnosis. So, after diagnosis, there can be a lot of reflecting and questioning. Why me? Why now? What's to come? Tell me a little bit about the questions you initially had and how it affected you back then.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the questions you asked are ones that I really dealt with right off the top. Why me? And, what is going to happen? Especially with MS, because it's a disease that takes a long time to play out. I mean, there's other diseases, that are like that, but MS in particular takes, 20, 30 years. And that can be, and there's a lot of unknowns. And in that journey for me looking forward, what would that life look like? Especially I was a young man, I was only 19 at the time. Those questions really, they circulated in my head for many years, right?
Yeah, I remember it well when I was first diagnosed. I'm like, why? I've been taking such good care of myself. Why did this happen? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's, that can be, again, that can be a really scary place to stay in, though. I think that, I tell people, sometimes I tell people that, set aside about 5 minutes of your day to worry, and then worry as hard as you can in that 5 minutes. And then when the timer's up, then move on, start doing something.
Oh,
and
that's
I think
great
that,
advice. Yeah, I love that.
But allow yourself the time to do it.
Yeah, give yourself grace, give yourself time to, have your feelings.
Yeah.
When we're faced with a new diagnosis, there are so many unknowns. It can be dangerous for our mental well-being and our physical well-being. How did it affect you, and what lessons have you learned that you can share from that experience?
Wow, that's a really, there's a lot of layers to that question.
Mm-hmm.
Because in looking back, I mean, I'm at 26 years now plus, right? I think I did some things for sure wrong, I would say, looking back. In many ways, I think I was like an athlete that got hurt and then, kept playing. And, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. I can push through this kind of thing.
Yep.
And there was some value to that, but there was also some long-term consequences. And that's kind of what I was getting at with that post, where when you look back, you think, like maybe I missed the boat there, and here are the impacts. But maybe and then trying to mine the good out of that is a journey in itself.
Yeah, so, hindsight 2020, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think I learned a lot. I mean, obviously, spiritually, mentally, and physically. And I think that the message I try to share with people is that it's discipline in all those categories that has been the learning and the process.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about your discipline. I know that you are really into your physical well-being, and how do you stay disciplined with that?
Yeah, that's a daily challenge. I was talking to a group last night actually about that. And, I was told people, I said, it's every day. I mean, I've been in this for over 25 years, and that just hasn't changed. Yeah. It just hasn't. And I wish, I tell people that if you're waiting for that one day to come around where it gets easy, that it's just not going to happen. So you just got to accept it. I mean, even yesterday was brutal. We had this big snowstorm kind of thing. And I'm like, how am I going to get out there and do it? Like, how? And I have to talk to myself for an extended, I'm not schizophrenic, I don't think. But I do have that inner conversation daily, to remind myself that the nutrition, the exercise, the mind discipline I find really challenging.
Yeah.
But I've found practices for me that I try to share that I've been able to control that to the best of my ability.
Yeah, getting those practices, I find that if I can get into routine, like every day I brush my teeth. Okay, well, every day I need to stretch and exercise as well. That's got to be part of my routine. And my mindfulness, if I am not participating in my meditation and my prayer daily, then I know I'm not going to be on task, and I know that I'm going to suffer because of it. So it's got to be part of my routine.
Yeah.
If you can remember back when you were first diagnosed, when did you realize that you could start taking control of your health? And once you did, how did that affect you?
I'm pretty quick. Pretty quick. I really grew up in a really sports-driven childhood. And so I think in that, and what I learned, and there are some negative aspects of that for sure, which I'm very mindful of with my own children at this stage. But there are also some positives in that you either win or you lose. And it's what you do right away. That is that immediate action that is going to determine the course of the game, with whatever sport you're playing. And I had that mentality, and I took that to my health. So once I felt that I could control things with nutrition, exercise was not as much back then at the beginning, because back then you were advised maybe not to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So it was different. And then in my desk, I actually carved, it was on July 26th. This is obviously juvenile, but it was like, I carved, declaration of war on MS, and I put the date and I carved it in the drawer of my desk. And that would have been about 6 weeks after diagnosis.
Wow, what a great physical reminder and good permanent reminder that you took control. That's awesome.
Yeah, my dad just moved away, and he left the desk behind, and my last day in the house, I think I took photos of it. So I'm like, hey, it's still here. I kind of, not that I'd forgotten, but it's been a while.
That's excellent. So once you had that shift from the fear of unknown to taking control, and you marked down that date, and you started to look forward to what's next. What steps did you take to start gain control of your health?
Well, and that was just really, really a disciplined nutritional plan, exercise plan, high dose vitamin D. Back then I was more atheist in my perspective on life. I didn't have a lot of time for spiritual conversations again, and I just wasn't ready. Couldn't hear it. And that lasted for a long time. And then it really was, and then there was an urgency. I really had an urgency about my life, because I just didn't know how long it was going to last. I had a certain degree of confidence, but when the worst case, I tell people sometimes when you experience something which feels like the worst case scenario, you never really can come back from that without feeling that like this could happen again.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do it. I'm not there. So, and when that became a reality, that was a very different way to live. And I certainly accelerated things as a young man that I shouldn't have, for sure, because of that urgency, and there were consequences to that. So you're trying to pack a lifetime into a decade, and that had its own problems, but its own benefits.
Right. Right. That's all part of that learning journey that we're on. Finding what works and what doesn't work, and looking back and learning from what we've done. Maybe changing the path forward. Yeah.
And then I would think if I had one mistake, and again, I would never go back and fix it. So I love where I am today. So going back could alter that path. So wouldn't do that. Is that I really put it on the back burner. It's to such an extent that it probably was unhealthy for me. And then I think it may have had external consequences by not stepping forward earlier into the space to try to help people.
Wow. So once you stepped into that space, you
Yeah.
know, from the whys and the what ifs to the what next, what answers have you found since then?
What next is that, well, that's a great question. I mean, I think at the end, one thing I've discovered is that I can control my outcomes. Like, I am in control of where I want my life to go. And that self-empowerment has been huge, especially as I got into my 40s. I felt that has been really, really powerful. And one thing I don't know, one answer I don't know, are where my upper limits are. And that's something that it really excites me, because, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, how good can this get? Right. And, I know there's going to be problems. I know there's going to be certain things I can't control. But if I keep going to each time making the best decisions I can, wow, things just keep getting better and better and better and better.
That is so powerful. Having that realization that we're in control, and
Mhm.
the decisions that we make with how we live our lives and the nutrition we put in our bodies and how we move our bodies and how we rest and take care of our bodies and how we take care of our spiritual lives as well. That's so empowering. And you're right, that upper limit, where can we go once we take charge and have those realizations? That's really profound.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I did a post today I could talk about, which I felt
Yeah, please do.
along these lines, where I said, when you're diagnosed with MS or any long-term illness, you're suddenly given the free pass to play the victim card for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be very tantalizing, because you get a few short-term wins, you get sympathy from people, you get attention. Like, there's things that may feel good at the time, but the consequences of that are really problematic, because if you're a victim, then you're not in control of the external world. And then you're dependent upon the external world or other people. And what I share with people is, instead of using MS as my excuse for why I can't do things, I use it as an excuse for why I can.
Yeah, I read that post today, and that's really powerful. When we say, okay, I have MS, therefore I'm going to, instead of I can't, I'm going to take control of my nutrition. I'm going to fulfill my career dreams. I'm going to move forward in the healthiest way possible. Yeah, that's a really great way to turn it around, instead of a victim, turn it around to, what can I do with this? That's great.
Yeah, and I think that's really, to your point, I think that's really important with how we use language. People ask me what kind of MS I have. I say progressive MS, because I'm progressively getting better.
Oh, that's awesome.
I find terms to be weaponized in the medical community to make people feel like they're going to go down. And how do we reframe that in our community, to use those words for empowerment, and to use diagnosis and these types of terminology to find upper limits?
Yeah, for sure. I love that you're turning the language around. The name of my YouTube channel is Even So It Is Well. Even so I have MS, it is well. And
right. Yeah.
That is how I start my day. Even so, it's well, and I'm going to have a good day today.
That's good.
Do you have any advice that you can share with our viewers who might be struggling with those why questions right now? How can they get past that dark spot?
When I talk to newly diagnosed people, which I do quite a bit, I get contacted, I tell people, you've been chosen. It just may not make sense right now. And I believe that. Like, I truly believe that. I believe that we've been given any illness, you're given that illness, because suddenly it's all eyes on you. And I think that what I mean by that is that pretty much everyone in your life is looking to you to succeed. I mean, there may be some people who don't want you to do good, but I think it's the minority. I think the majority of people around you want you to rise up. And when you do rise up, and when you actually achieve that, you'll be shocked, because suddenly you start raising up the people around you, because they're watching you, and they're, they're saying, hey, that person, look at the life they're leading. And then all of a sudden you've impacted another life. And all of a sudden that person impacts another life, and it's like a ripple effect, like a drop in the water. It just goes like this, right? And you're the drop. Yeah. You're the drop in your world. So
absolutely.
And so I try to share with people, it's about you. It's about you now. Like, you've been given a wake up call. Like, why this happened is because you tried your best up to this point, but now you got to change.
Mhm.
And don't beat yourself up for it. Like, you just tried your best, but now you got to figure out strategies you got to put into place to become a better version of you. And then that in turn will help others around you, which is hard, very hard to see at the beginning. Like,
It
it's
sure is.
very, very hard.
Yeah,
Right.
I never blame myself for my illness, but I definitely had a shift in mindset after some time saying, okay, this is not my fault, but my health is my responsibility. So I had to
Mhm.
have a shift in mindset that it's my responsibility to take care of this body. This is my responsibility to take care of my spiritual well-being and
Mhm.
not play that victim card. We have to move forward, and instead of why, what's next? So,
Yeah, and I hope I don't come across that people have to blame for their own illness. I mean, it's like if
not
it's snowing outside, you're not to blame for the snow, but you are to blame for how you deal with it.
mhm.
So once the external, event occurs, now it's up to you to how you're going to shift, and those choices, I think you have to be held accountable to every day.
Exactly, exactly. Whether or not you like the
Yeah,
snow is going
right.
to be there. So you might as well find joy.
That's right. Exactly. It's like, well, right. I totally agree with that. Like, how do I make the best of this now? Right. That can be
Yeah,
very hard sometimes.
yeah, it can be really hard. But I love your advice that you gave earlier of, take 5 minutes. It's okay
Yeah.
to feel bad. Take the 5 minutes, feel those feels, feel those emotions, and then, all right, stand up, dust it off. What's next?
Yeah. And I think as I've gotten older, I'm getting better at owning those kind of things.
Hmm.
And I'm also getting better at seeing them not like they're not me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really hard thing to communicate. I struggle with jealousy sometimes, and I'm like, why? Like, I reasonably know people and I trust people, but like,
Mhm.
why am I experiencing this? Like, why am I being inflicted with this emotion that's really bothering me, right?
We're
And
all human.
I just kind of shake my head. I'm like, here comes that jealousy again. Darn it! Like, how long is it gonna last?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Matthew, you have been such an inspiration to me. The Living Proof is one of the first movies that I saw after my
Okay.
diagnosis, and it has inspired me to live a healthier, more physical, well-rounded life with my MS. And I appreciate you so
Wonderful.
much taking the time to be with us today. Please tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really easy to find. mshope.com is the website, the landing page. My personal phone number is on there, as well as my personal email. So you call that number, you're going to get me.
Excellent. Thank you. And you can find Matthew all over social media, and he is just a joy and such an inspiration. Thank you again for being with us today. And until next time, my dear friends, be well.